This is a $1,000 wet dry vacuum and it's the Tineco S9 Artist Pro. But what you're really getting here is that you're getting bragging rights to say, I got the most expensive wet dry vacuum ever made. But if you really think about it, this is a Roborock Saros Z70 and it costs about $2,400. So the prices for some of these home tech stuff is going absolutely crazy. Because I'm really wondering if it's smart to spend $1,000 on a wet dry vacuum, knowing that it's basically a love child between the Tineco Stretch S6 and the Tineco S7 Pro that you see here. It even is missing some features from the Tineco S7 Pro, so let's get to it. Let me explain to you why you might not or you may want to spend $1,000 on your wet dry vac.
Starting with the sticky icky peanut butter and maple syrup test, your S9 is coming with 22,000 pascals of suction versus 10,000 pascals of suction on your S7. But for the peanut butter as well as for the maple syrup, I do not notice any difference in terms of their overall performance, and they're both going to have great edge cleaning, and it makes quick work of both stains. You can also see the difference in the displays where I have to look at the handle, and I'm getting a lot more information easier to read on the S7 with that joypad. So it really depends on what you need here, but I prefer that kind of display on the S7, but I know other people might prefer that iLoop blue light bar on your S9.
Now I want to do a more difficult test. So this is instant coffee I got from Trader Joe's. So the secret is I'm going to spill it and we're going to let this dry overnight and see if our Tineco S9 is going to be able to clean up this fully dried instant coffee mess tomorrow.
I know a lot of reviewers just test out their unit for like 10 minutes and tell you that they tested it out for weeks, but I've actually used mine for 2 weeks here, and you can see this is a real caked on stain that everyone's been asking me to do for all of my wet dry vac tests. So we're going to try it with our S9 and see how well it's going to pick everything up. And as long as you go slowly, the secret of the S9 Artist Pro is that because it has increased suction power, it does make easy work of that coffee stain. And when you're on the way back, because of that automatic water streak removal, you also do not have streaks, and this is a testament to that feature because it's actually a little bit cleaner when you go backwards.
Running our test, our Tineco S9 was able to easily pick up the entire dried coffee mess on our floor, and that's because the Tineco S9 as a mop is very effective. However, you need to make sure that you use enough detergent or solution, because this sticky mess, so if you have these sticky messes, it's going to do a much better job if you're using the soap than if you just use water. It will not have the same results if you just use water, and you can see this is still here. Now let's see how the Tineco S7 Pro does.
So in our head-to-head comparison, can you tell the difference between the S7 and the S9's performance here? Because if you're using them, you might not be able to. I will say on really dry stain, the S9 does do a ever so slightly better job than what you get on the S7. But that cutting edge technology doesn't make a huge difference when you have something as dried and sticky and as aggressive as this dry coffee, because both do a great job and both areas are very clean.
Now the stain is completely gone. All of that sticky overnight dried coffee is removed from this tile, and that's the secret. Now let's look at the rollers. So the results you want to know is really how well did it clean it and how dirty was the floor overall. So let me show you the rollers here. So I want to know how well is it going to remove the coffee stain, just like how well did it remove the ketchup stain that we did in our kitchen. In our Tineco S7 Pro, we can also see there are coffee stains on it as well.
There is a big paradigm shift between the S7 and the S9 in terms of their self-cleaning systems. The S9 is coming with that flash dry self-cleaning system, so it's going to use heated fresh water to clean the pipes as well as the brush roll, and that's going to be up to 185 degrees, and it's use active hot air drying up to 185 degrees so that it can dry the entire brush roll in just about 5 minutes. It also features bi-directional rotation, so that means the brush is going to rotate bi-directionally up to 720 degrees so that it can agitate the fibers better. But the S7 comes with a longer deep cleaning cycle, and really having a longer self-cleaning cycle, that deep clean cycle, makes a world of difference, maybe even more difference than just using heated fresh water.
So the roller on the Tineco S7 Pro is now completely clean, and that's because we used the deep clean cycle. It is still wet though, but it is completely clean. Now let's check out the S9. But the S9's roller is not completely clean, and that's because if you use heat, it will really set in any type of food, organic food, that has talons or something that might be potentially staining to this white roller. So that means if you have wine, ketchup, coffee, because the heat sets it in, it's actually going to discolor your roller a lot faster. So this is that dirty water tank after cleaning up the coffee, as well as running that single session for self-clean. And you can see it basically is almost full, and it almost used all the water. And that's in contrast to the S7, where it did a similar job, except it uses less water than what you use on the S9.
And you're wondering, why am I doing a ketchup test? It's actually because ketchup stinks, especially if you apply heat to it, especially if your brush rolls are not clean and has some ketchup residue. You're going to be smelling that the day later, and it's going to smell. And these are the stains that the S9 really excel at, even if you have it just on auto mode. Because of that increased suction power and because it uses a lot of water, it makes quick work out of this stain here, and it doesn't smell on the floor. However, the roller itself is going to smell like the garbage can inside of a McDonald's, so we got to make sure we clean it right away. And the reason why everybody is looking to have that flash dry system is because hot air really aggressively evaporates all the residual moisture, so that it's not going to give it the conditions for bacteria and mold to grow. And that's something you have to think about. If you had a mop, you would be washing it, but if you're not washing your wet dry vacuum, well, you better hope that your self-clean system is going to do a better job just making sure that all the unpleasant odors and bacteria do not grow.
And you have to know the self-clean cycle is not going to be the solution for every type of organic stain. So if you pick up a lot of ketchup, as you can see, it does a pretty good job removing it, but it's going to be dry, but there's a slight red tinge on top. Because imagine if you got ketchup on your clothes, it's going to be the same story. It does do a better job than most of its competition because it uses hot water, but now if I want to really clean it, I'm going to have to take it manually to the sink, use some soap, and then I'm going to place it back and let it dry itself.
And finally, let's do the oatmeal and chocolate milk test. So your S9 and your S7 are easily going to make quick work of that chocolate milk, but how is it going to do on that oatmeal? I was surprised how much suction power the S9 actually has, because it just went straight through the oatmeal, no hesitation. It was even more effective than the mops. I would say that it's slightly more effective for these larger particles than the S7. And the S9 surprised me because it makes easy, quick work, even easier than what you get on the S7 on the larger particles. And I think that's a lot related to just the increased suction power. And if you ever just use this on suction mode on your low pill carpets, on your hard floors, you're really getting a Swiffer plus a wet jet all in one, except now it's going to have mopping and be a much more powerful vacuum.
And the Tineco S9 will have the same MHCBS or Maintain Hygiene Clean brush system, where the water flows in one direction at 450 RPM, as what you get on the Tineco S7, on the Stretch X6, and other S7s out there. So the tech here is not that different, but there are going to be these dual combs now coming here. So the system is you basically have the same roller as the Tineco S7, but now you're getting these double combs on the bottom so that it's going to be better at removing pet hair when you vacuum. The bin is going to be the same bin you get on the S7 Stretch Ultra, except now you can pop it out, and it really does a good job separating all of the debris inside of the bin. So there's going to be an area right where the filter is, there's going to be a secondary area right here, and you just lock that all in. And the new design also is going to be more in that L shape. And you notice on the S5, they did not have full edge to edge. It was really just edge to edge on the left and the front, but not on the right because that's where the roller is. And then you get to the S9. Well, you're looking at them and you're saying, what's the real difference here? Well, it's going to be a little bit more intuitive, and it's going to roll backwards sometimes when you turn it off so that it's going to leave less streaks. And Tineco calls this their Smooth Drive 360 all direction propulsion system, so that it's going to push itself and it's going to leave less streaks. I did not notice a huge difference between maneuvering the S9 and the S7, even though this comes with something called the Smooth Drive 360 all directional propulsion. And that's because most likely if you're using this as a wet dry vacuum, you're going to be going back and forth more than you're going sideways, turning and trying to do crazy maneuvers with it because you don't want streaks.
But there's also going to be some upgrades on the S9 over the S7 and the S5s and the S6s, one of them being that it can now finally faster charge. So your Tineco is going to be able to charge with a 2A flash charger. So that means it takes about 2.5 hours to fully charge the battery when it used to take about 4 hours on your S7 or your S5. And the Tineco S9 comes with a bigger battery than what you get on the S7. Here, you're getting an upgraded pouch cell, so that's going to give it more steady power curve. That's rated at 6,250 milliampere hours. That's in contrast to 4,000 milliampere hours that you get on the S7 Pro, as well as on the S5. So that means you're also getting 75 minutes of battery life on the Tineco S9 versus 40 minutes of battery life on your Tineco S7 or your S5. Looking at the charging base for the Tineco One S9 Artist Pro, you can see that it's pretty much just like the flash drive charging base you're getting on the S7. There's no secret to how these charging stations work. There's a heater inside, there's going to be air, the exhaust air is coming out of here, and you have the hot air coming out of the front right here through these vents. There's nowhere to store your extra roller or the extra filter. You're going to have to put that inside of the closet, but this charging base is going to dry your unit very quickly. And I did a temperature check. The highest I got was about 151 degrees, and I'm sure you can get this number higher if you get closer or you let it run longer, but I think 151 was the reading through all of that plastic on top.
So now for the part you've all been waiting for, do I recommend the Tineco S9 Artist Pro? Well, it's hard. It's really hard for me to recommend it at $1,000. If you're looking for the best wet dry vacuum with the best overall cleanup performance, well, the S9 might be that. But just remember, your S7 self-cleaning cycle is going to be longer, it's going to be more comprehensive, and even though your S7 doesn't have that flash drive feature, there are S7s with those flash drive features. It's just everything has been really segmented inside of the Tineco line to give you more choice. And the choice is the freedom you're getting. So if you want to get the most expensive, you want to get the best of the best, well, the S9 might be that. For me, I'd rather save a little bit of money, get the S7 on sale, and maybe I could just throw in the S5 here for the same price you're paying in for this S9. For me personally, I think the S7 Pro is still Tineco's best wet dry vacuum. It's going to be coming with the most advanced display. It's going to be really easy to use, and the self-clean cycle here, out of all the Tinecos, out of all the wet dry vacuums we've ever tested, this is going to have the best self-cleaning. So that means if I pick up a large organic mess on my floor and it's ketchup or it's coffee or it's wine, this has the highest likelihood to remove that stain because it has a deep clean cycle. The S9 is really giving you more convenience and simplicity, even though it's going to be the highest end model. And what's really confusing is that if you wanted similar results as the S9 here, you can actually just get the less expensive S7 Stretch Ultra, which is going to have the same features. It also is going to be lying flat, but just remember, just like people who might have a Mercedes G-Wagon or a BMW 7 Series car, in today's day and age, do you really care? Does anybody really care? Because for me, I think you need to get the best for your house, for your budget, and for your lifestyle. So with that, thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment box below, and please hit that like or subscribe button. It really does help support our channel. Now, I'm not knocking the Tineco S9 for what it is. I'm just saying that, well, why is it so expensive? So with that, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll catch you next time. Bye.